show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's March the 18th, 2024. I'm Gary Furman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And man, we might as well start with the big news of the day, and that is because today is the one day a year that NFL scouts, general managers, sometimes even head coaches in the past, descend on the University of Miami for Pro Day. And this is their chance to get an in-person assessment of all of the guys that are intending to make themselves available in the NFL draft here coming up in about, I guess, a month or so. And Matt, we've been watching a lot of these pro days through the years, and we have watched as they've diminished just because of the lack of impactful talent on the Hurricane roster. It is not what it used to be, but this year it is kind of interesting because you've got 3 guys who I do not feel should be in the draft. In Cam Kinchens, James Williams, and Leonard Taylor. I believe they should be coming back to Miami and continuing to try to get better, try to become complete performers and contribute to a better Miami football team in 2024. Instead, they all chose to go into the NFL draft. And I guess the first thing that we could talk about this morning before we get into some specifics is the overall general concept of is this going to be a day of reckoning for these guys where, maybe they aren't able to turn heads the way they had hoped. And the reality of their draft prospects as they start to come into focus after today could potentially not be what they thought they would be when they decided to go into the draft. Your thoughts on their decisions to go into the draft and what might happen today out, I assume, at the indoor practice facility where they will probably be doing most of the work.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they had a big enough NIL deal, they probably wouldn't have felt the need to go to the NFL. That's just the reality of it. But, these pro days are sort of silly now because, unfortunately, what has become, it used to be, no matter what happened previously, all these guys who were potential first rounders would do every event, for scouts and GMs. Now the GMs don't even bother showing up because what happens is they just go to the combine, do stuff there, and then just do some field work, run around a little bit, on pro day, which is silly. And then it's the guys who aren't getting drafted who it's really the opportunity for, right? So, a Matt Lee, I mean, yeah, he was at the combine, but guys like that who are borderline draftees, those are the guys that really pro day is about. It's not about the 3 guys Gary mentioned because those guys aren't going to do a heck of a lot. Yeah, Cam Kinchens will run the 40. He's probably not going to run it a lot faster. If he can get under 4.6, I think for him that's a victory, but it's not going to move the bar. He's not a fast safety. We always said, even when he's playing for Miami, we said he's not going to wow you with his measurables. He's not the biggest, fastest, or strongest. At least I said that all the time. But what he does have is an uncanny ability to be in the right place at the right time, an uncanny skill. Well, for studying film, he sees things on film that other safeties, other players don't. And he recognizes tendencies at the snap of a finger, and he knows where to be because of that. It's not like just luck that he had, whatever it is, 11 interceptions, whatever, the last 2 years. That's not just luck. So, even, I asked one of the ESPN analysts who don't know much more than Gary Furman, but I asked him anyway. He still thinks Cam will be a second rounder because it doesn't matter with a guy like Cam Kinchens. A guy like James Williams should have wowed in all these departments, and he really didn't. He had a very poor vertical. So, does James have to probably do another vertical at UM? Yeah, but it's not like, a few weeks later, all of a sudden these guys are different players who are going to test totally differently. They are what they are, and a lot of them, a lot of the top 3 guys, Leonard, Cam, and James, aren't going to do a lot of work besides one guy doing a vertical here, one guy doing a 40 there, and then just maybe some individual drill work. But again, we'll keep an eye on the other guys. We'll talk to all 3 of those guys afterwards. That's really what it's about for me, covering that. See some former players. It's nice to see those guys, and then just see what those 3 guys, James, Cam, and Leonard, are talking about afterwards. To me, that's what's most interesting about pro day, is just talking to them again. And I know some fans probably are more focused on current Hurricanes and what's going to happen next season, which I get it. There's not, I guess, that much interest in pro day from a Miami Hurricanes fans perspective, but it is important from a Miami fans perspective, I'd point out, to get first rounders eventually. Yeah, it's not going to happen this year, okay? But eventually you got to get to that point because A, when you have first rounders, it means your team's doing well because you have really good players on your team. And then B, when you have first rounders, it shows prospective recruits that, hey, we can develop you into this guy and that guy at your respective positions. So come here and be the next so-and-so, because you can't keep talking about Ed Reed and Ray Lewis to these kids, I saw, I think maybe Steven or Azubi wrote a story recently where they're calling one of their recruits a baby Ray Lewis. Like, they were a baby when Ray Lewis played. That's the only baby Ray Lewis you could even talk about with these guys because, Ray Lewis played for the Hurricanes before these guys were born, as sad as that is to say. So they need more recent comparisons they can make. And the only way to do that is to get these first rounders who become good NFL players. And then you can say, hey, look what we did with this guy. Because you can talk about Ray Lewis all you want, but these guys weren't coaching Ray Lewis. And the recruits weren't seeing Ray Lewis wear a Miami uniform unless they look at some really grainy YouTube footage.
All right. So on the website this morning, we preview Pro Day. You guys can take a look at that. And it's got a heavy focus on Cam Kinchens. And one of the reasons why, to be quite honest, is Cam Kinchens of the group was the one guy that was willing to talk candidly with us about his process and what he's facing today at Pro Day and what's on his mind and how he's trying to improve himself and the pressure he's under and the microscope and all those things. Cam Kinchens isn't running away from anything. Okay, he's not uptight. He is going to go out there today with the intent of showing that he's maybe a little bit better than maybe what they think of him coming out of the NFL Combine. And on that day, he ran a not so great 4.65 second 40-yard dash. Okay, that is not going to help him at all because in the National Football League, if your DBs aren't running 4.4s today at 4.5s on the outside, they are at a huge disadvantage. There's just so much speed in that league now, and the offenses are so explosive, and you really got to be able to run. If you're going to be a safety, the old days of the safety sitting back in two deep coverages and playing center field are long gone in the National Football League because of how often teams typically need their safeties to match up man-to-man on receivers. So Cam Kinchens knows that he's going into today's Pro Day with a heck of a lot to prove. And he only ran 4.65 at the Combine and didn't vertical particularly great. He wasn't particularly great in the broad jump. So he comes in here today needing to improve and show that he's better than what he did at the Combine. So he talked to us quite a bit about that. You can see the story on the website. There's some interesting elements in there. Matt, for the most part, Cam Kinchens' film is not too bad. I mean, listen, he was named an All-American off of that, and really off of his 3 interceptions against Georgia Tech as a junior. I mean, as a sophomore, but his film is not, like you noted earlier in the show, it's not going to eliminate him. He made a lot of plays. Yes, he had some bad ones too, and I know I harp on that sometimes because, I struggle with the notion of putting labels on players who aren't consistently great. And listen, there were at least 4 games in the last 2 years where a critical coverage bust by Cam Kinchens, including the knee game this past year, a critical coverage bust by Cam Kinchens contributed directly to a defeat. Okay. And, so just to clarify, because I know people get mad at me when I keep it real like this. I mean, there's nothing I would love to say than Cam Kinchens is the greatest safety to ever play for the Miami Hurricanes. He's not. He made a lot of mistakes during the course of these last few years. He also made good plays. So he's going to have some film that will speak positively to his potential as an NFL player. It might even be good enough, as Matt says, to get him drafted as high as the second round. But Matt, I really think, and you talked to Cam about this, and I really think that because that he shows up favorably in that aspect of things, coming into this NFL draft process, that puts even greater pressure on him coming out of the combine to put up better measurables in today's workouts.
I mean, these guys are what they are. Like I just said, like 2-3 weeks later, they're not going to all of a sudden be different. I mean, he literally trained in California for however many weeks. He didn't gain a single pound. He didn't lose a single pound. Like, he is what he is. And that's okay. He was a really, really good safety at Miami. I know Gary didn't think he was good enough. I thought he was an excellent safety.
More than
that, he's a great person. And NFL teams look at the entire body of work, not just, can he make plays? They got to be good teammates. They got to be leaders. I mean, he checks every box other than some of the measurables. And the measurables aren't awful. Do you want a safety who runs a little faster than he does? Yeah. But there's a dearth of safeties. I'm not talking about Darth Vader, Gary. You can look up the word DEARTH. There's a dearth of safeties in the NFL right now. A lot of teams have released safeties. So Cam and these other safeties in the draft right now, not James Williams, who Gary, by the way, correctly pointed out should have been playing linebacker at Miami, but refused to.
Thank you for giving me credit for something.
Yeah, I mean, look, that
people
I think
one day are going to be saying the same thing about my running commentary on Ja'Carri Brown, that he should have given himself a chance to be something else other than a quarterback, because he does have enormous potential, just like James maybe could have been a great linebacker.
I think James probably regrets it, but what James hasn't been and wasn't in high school is a great tackler in traffic. He never has been, and he recognized that. What he didn't recognize was, hey, let Miami coaches teach me how to be a great tackler and let me change my body and bulk up and become a linebacker. Even though everyone was telling him you're going to be a linebacker, he just apparently didn't believe it. And, it doesn't help him at all. It actually hurts him a lot. He could have been, if he came in as a linebacker and probably would have had to redshirt for a year and get a little bit bigger and really learn some better tackling technique. I mean, he had first rounder written all over him. There's a reason he was a 5-star. He's just wound up being a tweener. He's not a safety and he's not a linebacker. He's a nothing right now in the NFL. And right now an NFL team's going to have to take him and teach him how to play linebacker correctly. And yeah, he got some reps in the box, but at practice, he was a safety. He was working with the safeties every drill. He wasn't working with linebackers at Miami, okay? Whether you want to think he's played linebacker or not at Miami just because he's in the box a lot. So there's a long learning curve for him. And honestly, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he drops more than people think. People think maybe 3rd, 4th round. It wouldn't shock me if he goes in the 5th or 6th round because, he's got all the measurables. He's had an injury history with shoulders. He's never really worked with linebackers or learned the linebacker position the way you need to see it. So there's no real film of him. And I'm not sure that Miami coaches can talk to NFL teams right now and be like, yeah, he's great. He's going to be a great linebacker because, you can tell an NFL team how great every one of your players is. But at the end of the day, if you do that and they're not, those teams are going to stop drafting your players. They're going to stop asking about your players. That's why college teams are truthful with NFL teams. And I think if Miami coaches are being truthful with NFL teams, they'll say, listen, he refused to play linebacker. That's the truth. And like, how's that going to sound to an NFL GM or an NFL scout who's going to spend however many millions of dollars taking him, as a 4, 5, 6 year future prospect, knowing the guy doesn't want to play the position you're drafting him to play? So I think he drops. We'll see. Hopefully he goes high because look, you want to root for Miami Hurricanes, but would not shock me if he goes lower than what people think he should based on just how fast, big, strong potential wise he has.
Well, James Williams, did the same test as Cam at the combine and didn't do particularly well.
Well, no. A 4.65 is really good for a linebacker. It's not real good for a safety. So that did not hurt James whatsoever. What hurt James was I don't know why his vertical was like 30 inches or something ridiculous, but that was inexplicable. I don't know if he had some injury or something or what that was about. But no, I mean, generally speaking, James Williams is one of the freakish, athletic, large bodies you're going to find, whether it's at safety or certainly at linebacker. So I don't know if the teams are going to have that much concern about him athletically versus mentally and tackling wise and wanting to learn and wanting to tackle. Because you can see at Miami, he clearly didn't want to tackle for the first couple of years. I mean, he was just literally try to bounce guys, with his body instead of wrapping up. And he was better last year, for sure. He was better last year. But again, the film he's showing over 3 years it's inconsistent film. And it's not at the position he's going to play in college. And it's a position he refused to play in college. So, I don't know where you go with that as an NFL team. Like if I'm an NFL like GM, if it's like a late round pick, for sure I'm taking him just on potential. But if it's a third, fourth round pick, like those are like experienced, real veteran, good players you can get who can help you right away. James Williams is not going to help you right away as a linebacker. So I just don't know that he goes in the third or fourth round. I think, I'm not an expert, but I wouldn't shock me if he slides a little bit from what people think.
Yeah, and the guy that, this is really an interesting NFL draft cycle for these Miami guys, and none more so than Leonard Taylor. Flashed every now and then, but I don't think I'm saying anything too radical if I say he probably underachieved quite a bit in his Miami career. I think the expectations for him were much higher than the level of player that Leonard Taylor ended up being, unable to really take a lot of reps in games. We would sit there and say, how is Leonard Taylor sitting on the bench half of a game? And he just never really performed at a level to command more than that from the coaches. And they were always trying to motivate him. And, so now here it is. It's time to go try to make money playing football. And we've seen this story before, Matt. Something about that those greenbacks sometimes have a tendency to light a fire under some guys. But ultimately, like you said, in a different context, like you are what you are at this point. And I just wonder that when these NFL teams put Leonard Taylor under the microscope, where that's going to leave him in the NFL draft. And so I would say going into today, there's pressure on him too to just do something to open some eyes and make people think that, well, maybe Leonard didn't have the greatest college career, but maybe we can make him something at the pro level and inspire somebody to draft him higher than maybe he might get drafted right now, which doesn't look like it's going to be much more than middle rounds, correct?
I get, I'm not an expert at this stuff, but the thing is, I don't know everything else out there. I cover the Miami Hurricanes. So like you're asking me to be an NFL draft expert. I have no idea. I just know James Williams, like the NFL got, the insiders or whatever, NFL, ESPN insiders, like where they think he might go versus where he actually might go. It seems he's, a little bit high, but other than that, I have no idea where any of these guys are going. Cam Kinchins has been told maybe second round, late second round. That doesn't mean he will. A lot of stuff's just guesswork. It's not like NFL teams want anybody to know where they're taking players, right? They want everyone to think they're taking players really, really late so they can get them early. So, I don't know.
All right. And from there, you got Matt Lee, probably looking at getting drafted late in the draft. I'm not sure there's much he can really get done at Pro Day today. Javion Cohen, same type of situation. And then there's the rest of these guys, like I just don't know how they're really going to get drafted. To Corey Couch, Jaden Davis, Tyler Harrell, Branson Dean, Keontra Smith, KJ Cloyd, Ryan Ragone. They'll all be partaking in Pro Day today. I'm just not personally sure what they can really do to really get themselves on the radar. There's plenty of film on Corey Couch. People will be able to come to a firm conclusion on how good they think his coverage skills are. So, I don't see him like suddenly having an eye-opening, blistering 40-yard dash time or anything today that's going to change things. But we will be out there and we will bring you full coverage of Pro Day later today. And so you have that to look forward to on the website. And I might as well take a moment now to say, if you are watching this show on YouTube right now, please hit your subscribe and like buttons. It does help us with the algorithms at YouTube in expanding our audience and bringing more Canes fans into the fold in terms of viewers of this show and the others on our channel. If you're not yet a subscriber to Canesport.com, please rush on over to the website right now and come join our community of fans. We do not think you will be sorry. In fact, I'm going to throw a special up here on the screen right now. If you go to canesport.com and sign up as a new subscriber, we will give you your first 2 months for $1. Just use the code CANES1, CANES1, and we will give you your first 2 months for $1 at canesport.com. And we'd love to have you part of our website moving forward. So yeah, pro day coverage will be very much prevalent on the site later today. We'll also have some coverage of Miami basketball, which I'm sure you guys noticed was nowhere to be found yesterday on Selection Sunday. Absolutely stunning development. You're coming off a Final Four season. You're thinking, how can we parlay this Final Four appearance to greater things for Miami basketball going forward? And they came into the season thinking that, I'm not sure that Jim Larrañaga really thought he had a Final Four team again. I mean, now after the fact, we're seeing how gargantuan some of the holes they had on the interior and depth and things like that. But they certainly didn't expect to lose their last 10 games and fall out of the NCAA tournament picture. And so we'll be talking to Jim Larrañaga quite a bit today, and we'll have that on the website going forward. Just, what are Jim's plans over the next, the transfer portal for basketball opens today. What are the plans for all these players? Do Pack and Omier now have to come back for another year of college? I think you would want those two back. I'm not sure you would want too many more guys back. Do I want to see another year of Wooga Poplar after what happened this year? I don't know. I mean, I think they need to get better than Bensley Joseph. I mean, unless he's willing to go to the bench. The whole bench this year really contributed very little. I'm not sure you can bring those guys back. I mean, Jim Larrañaga is 75 years old, man. He doesn't have time to play around here if he's going to continue coaching. I mean, he wants to get back deep into the NCAA tournament and put a team on the court that is representative of where he's taken this program. And if he can't do that, then he might as well just retire now rather than risk diminishing, the great feelings of going to the Elite Eight and the Final Four. And this group this year really let him down, the university down. I'm personally hoping that they clean house. I would bring back Pack and Omier. They have a really good freshman coming in, Jalil Bethea. He's going to be something else. You could just see the talent that kid has, and build around him and bring those guys back. And then I would hit the portal like crazy this year and try to supplement what they feel is a pretty good recruiting class with some impactful guys out of the portal, and see what kind of run you can make next year. I wouldn't come back with the same guys that were colossal failures this year. That's just me. I wouldn't. I know I'm harsh sometimes. But look, I mean, everybody got paid this year. This is this is a business now. And what a disaster for Miami basketball, the way this season played out, Matt. So it'll be interesting to see what Larrañaga has to say today. I personally think he needs to clean house. Your thoughts?
I mean, we talked about this already, but yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. The women's team, I don't know why Katie Meyer said they were a lock for the NCAA tournament either. I mean, they finished 8-10 in the conference. They go 1-1 in the tournament, in the ACC tournament, finished 19-12, and she proclaims they're a lock for the ACC tournament. Now everyone's like, oh, they got robbed. I mean, they weren't that good. I'm sorry, they just weren't. So at least they'll be in the NIT. But yeah, the
Cavendish twins left.
Yeah, well, no, there's no interest anymore without the Twins left. Or if there's limited interest, I shouldn't say no. That's rude. There is no interest in the men's team. There's limited interest in the women's team. I don't want to be rude about that.
Let's think about that for a minute, though. Think how messed up that was. Why did they all right? So supposedly Haley didn't want to play basketball, and Hannah. Hannah didn't want to play basketball, so Haley decided she had to go along with her sister and was going to retire. Then all of a sudden, now she's going to Texas Christian, and her boyfriend plays for the Dallas Cowboys and all that. But that's totally messed up. I'm sorry, Miami put the Cavendish twins on the map by doing the NIL deal with them a year ago. I mean, when they were out at Fresno State, yeah, they were a cute little novelty, but they were not the national talk that they became when they came to Miami. And then they pull all this crap and listen, Katie Meyer could have used Haley Cavender this year. I mean, she would have helped them. And I mean, that's messed up. And now they're not in the tournament either. But we're getting off topic here. You know, Matt, I think Larrañaga needs to clean house. I really do. I don't think he can waste what could be the final year of his coaching career, bringing back these guys that clearly quit this year. They lost their last 10 games. Yes, they had injuries, but I felt like that became a little bit of an excuse, quite honestly, you know, for some of these other issues of team chemistry and so forth that clearly were issues. I hope he cleans house. I hope he hits the portal hard and can find the Jordan Miller, you know, for example, you know, and, you know, get the type of players that will allow him to take his recruiting class with a guy like Pack, who I still think has value if he's got good players around them, and Omier, who I think has value with other good players around them, particularly another big. Like, he can't keep being asked at his size to be a center all by himself. I mean, that's a joke. But like, hopefully that they get inspired to make some massive changes very quickly here and come back next year with a better product, because this year was really disappointing. So, you know, I know you don't really have a whole lot more you want to say on that subject. So
no, I mean, I would say the only thing I'm interested, I could care. Look, I don't care what happens with who comes back, who doesn't. I mean, Larrañaga has to figure it out, but what we're going to find out in a hurry is how their NIL money is, because I mean, let's face it, you know, the Sun Sentinel ran a story about, you know, the NIL situation. And I talked about it last week, you know, private schools is not sustainable long-term, what's going on, the smaller private schools, which is what Miami is, unless you have these giant donors, which, you know, obviously the Ruiz money was there and it's really not now. And you know, and Gary already mentioned about the facility and how that may, you know, has been pushed back, and who knows what's going to happen now, and how other programs around the country are diverting all their money to NIL because you have to win in order to be able to even justify having a new facility, right? And basketball, it's second fiddle at Miami, regardless of if they're Final Four. Even if Miami won the national championship this year, they'd still be second fiddle. That's the sad truth for those basketball fans out there.
But Larrañaga did go out and raise money, and everybody on that team did get paid this year.
Correct. So what I'm curious to see, and the reason I'm curious about it, is because after a bad season, really bad season, after he went out and fundraised based on, hey, we went to the Final Four, we need more money, we want to win a national championship at Miami, and then they fall on their face. Now when he goes back to those people, because let's face it, it's not a giant pool of donors for basketball like it is for football. Will these guys be back? Norchad Omier, will he transfer somewhere else because he gets more money? You know, Nigel Pack, will he go pro, or will he just transfer somewhere else where he gets more money? Will they stay at Miami? Because if they both stay at Miami, that means the NIL is very healthy, because that's a second fiddle program at Miami. So we're going to learn a lot about Miami's NIL from basketball, because if the basketball program can't bring in top free agents in the transfer portal, if the basketball program can't keep the guys it wants to keep, which would be a Norchad Omier and a Nigel Pack, no matter how much Gary wants to clean house, you know, that is going to say that's going to say a lot, because it's a small amount of people giving a large amount of money at Miami. And Gary and I both talk to these boosters who give upwards of six figures, high six figures and more. You know, are they only going to give to football and not to basketball? Are they only going to give to basketball and not to football? Are they going to give to both? You know, how does it get divvied up? How does the collective divvy it up? You know, does the collective say, oh my gosh, basketball needs so much help, let's hope that somebody else will fix football in a few months from now when signing day comes, we got to fix basketball first? Like, I don't know, because again, it's not unlimited money anymore. And not that it ever was, but when you have, you know, $5 million from one guy whose company went basically belly up or is going belly up, you know, that's a huge hole to fill. And so again, they talk about the canary in the coal mine, or, you know, or if Greenland goes underwater, then what that means for the rest of the world, you know, with global warming, which I know most of you know that's fake, right? Global warming's fake. The Earth being round is fake. Men on the moon is fake. You guys all know that stuff. I'm not telling you anything new. But this will be the canary in the coal mine. And for those who don't know, they would bring a canary in the coal mine. And if the canary died, that meant get the hell out of the coal mine, because there's no oxygen for the rest of us, okay? That's where that comes from. So this will be the canary in the coal mine. This will be the determining factor for if the basketball program is going to be dead like that canary in the coal mine, or if it will be flying high, like it has been the last couple of years. We're going to find out very quickly based on the transfer portal and based on who leaves, and if they wind up at other programs. It's that simple. It's not rocket science, and it's going to be a really interesting, few months here to watch what happens.
No doubt. And I'm sitting here being a proponent of hitting the portal and getting some talent in here, but that costs money. Like, we were just like Matt was just saying. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, can they raise the money for basketball specific the way they were able to coming off the Final Four? The collective's got a challenge. The John Ruiz days are long gone. It's the collective show now. I think they're up to like 8 employees now, Matt, this collective, Canes Connection. And they are a lot of fundraising and a lot of activity going on there. So we wish them luck. And but they, right, everything we could see right now, that they still are well funded. Miami NIL is still in a decent place, but football's got to win this year, I think, and basketball, I think, will get a pass on this season. But Larrañaga has got to put this thing back together quickly. I don't think he can do it with the current roster. I think he must clean house, get rid of the guys that aren't contributing and don't have a chance to contribute, use those roster spots, and go get himself some better talent to make a run next year. So we'll see what happens. We'll be talking to him more today. All right, another thing I thought I would just touch on real quick, and it's a little bit of a broken record with us, so we're not going to go too deep on this right now. But you are going to see us. We're continuing to give you guys coverage on the tight roster numbers that football has right now and the prospects of adding talent in the spring window, because this team needs more talent. Like, we're finding out today when we go to NFL Pro Day, and it's going to, be a relative yawn fest out there. There is not enough impactful talent in this program. So Mario Cristobal is going to keep trying to improve this roster. It is an absolute must in today's world of college football. And that means that, you're constantly having to manage your numbers and mine for more talent. So we do have a story right now that goes into that on the website, talking about some of the positions that we think that Miami will be looking to add guys here in the window. And, Cristobal has made it clear, Matt, that he is not sitting pat, that he is going after some guys this spring. But if our count is correct, there are already 10 scholarships over the 85 limit. So they already got to make 10 cuts. So every guy they add in the portal will add to that number. But I think it's pretty clear that there will be action coming forward here in the portal window in April. And that's why we are covering it so intently, because, we want to be ready for it too.
Well, I mean, they're over by 7 if, as you mentioned, Lou Cristobal becomes a walk-on. And they'll probably add at least 2 or 3 transfers. So, yeah, they'll have to cut around 10. But the gray area in this all, and somebody was posting on the message board, they're like, oh, there's no problem anymore because the NCAA has expanded their scholarship count from whatever it was 105 to 115 or 110 to 120, whatever. But, those are roster numbers. Those aren't scholarship numbers. The scholarship number remains 85. I don't think there's any real rule against a program giving a current player an extra $100,000 and saying, now you're a walk-on. I don't know if that's illegal or not. I don't know if the NCAA would be unhappy with that.
I would not recommend.
Right. I don't think Miami wants to be I don't think Miami wants to be the first team that does that, but I think there will be teams that do that, because let's face it, Miami almost did it, right? Because there was an FSU running back, I can't remember his name, but he committed to Miami as a walk-on, and he was an FSU scholarship player. And even got some carries last year. And I think he wound up at FAMU. Do you remember what his name was, Gary? He was committed here for like a moment as a walk-on. But I know
you're talking about though. But.
Yeah, so like things like that can happen. What you're not, again, these are guys. The issue is going to be this, right? Those guys are going to be third teamers, fourth teamers. They're not going to be starters. The starters are going to be on scholarship. So trying to get a guy and give him an extra $100,000 to be a walk-on, to be a third teamer or a fourth teamer, that's not what most of these players are looking for. Most of these players are looking for.
I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Okay, regardless of the implications for the NCAA, Most of these players don't want to do that anyway. They want to play. They don't want to sit on a bench and be a scout team guy and get and basically get paid whatever their small NIL deal is, and then their $100,000 that they have to give to the school anyway for tuition and housing and whatever else. So, for fans that think that's an end around, I'm not sure it works. I'm not sure that the NCAA will not have a major issue with that as a loophole, much as programs tried to hide football players on track scholarships for years, right? So again, 85 is still 85 to me. And for fans who want to say, oh, they can just, figure it out with more money and whatever, and they up the scholarship limit, like that's not the 85 number they're talking about. So it's still an issue, and they're still going to probably cut, I think, double-digit players off the roster in the spring who, as Gary said, will be happy to leave. Right, Gary? They're thrilled to leave.
Yeah, thrilled to death. Yeah, it'll be.
Can't wait to get out of here.
It's going to be interesting. It will. Some might, if they're not getting a lot of reps in practice. But we'll see how that plays out. But we are continuing to cover it, and you will continue to see it here over the next month or so on the website, because it's a very pertinent issue with the football program right now. All right, just a couple other notes. Cam Ward's agent came out over the weekend and said that Cam Ward's going to be getting richer. I'm sure everyone's very excited about that. I believe his NIL deal is somewhere in the neighborhood of going to be in the neighborhood of 1.5 by the time it's all said and done. And now he's going to be making more money from apparently a Fortune 500 company. So it'll be interesting. I hope, Cam Ward handles all this stuff well. He's, we met him. He seems like a rock solid young man. If anybody can handle all this, it'll be him. But just hope it works out well. He mostly has to focus on what he can get done on the football field. And we already saw, Matt, this thing go in the wrong direction with Tyler Van Dyke, all the NIL deals and everything. And then he fell apart as a player. We just got to hope that, the same thing doesn't happen with Cam Ward. And as he continues to build his business portfolio with his marketing agent out there working. So I'm sure they didn't disclose the Fortune 500 company. I'm sure that we will be seeing more on that in the future. Apparently his parents are going to be featured in whatever campaign is involved in that. So interesting development there for Cam Ward over the weekend. We got a lot of recruiting stories on the website, and we'll continue to do so. Miami very active in recruiting. You got a lot of prospects coming to campus these days, visiting practice, visiting the building. So I'm not going to go through all the recruiting stories right now, but there's a lot of them on the website. Make sure you check those out as well. And with 3 practices this week, football practice resuming on Tuesday, and we'll be talking about that as we go forward this week. But there will be a lot of prospects visiting campus as well, and we will have coverage of all that also. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Thank you so much for starting out your day with us. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Furman, and we will see you next time, everybody.